welcome to Ecoholics. Today we are going to understand the basics of economic growth and development. Today I'm not going to be teaching you the difference between economic growth and development. Instead, I'm going to give you some very important vitals of what exactly means economic growth and economic development. So let's begin. Firstly, let's understand why do we actually study about all of these growth theories. Now, let me tell you, whenever we talk about growth theories, growth models, there are some important factors that you should always remember to write in your exams. Most of the competitive examinations where you have to do answer writing regarding this growth and development module, I usually see students forgetting certain terminologies that are often considered very vital for growth and development theories. So first, let's look at those. Economic growth is not just about GDP numbers. Yes, economic growth is not just about the GDP numbers, but it also tells who grows or what exactly is growing, whether the output is growing, income is growing, what are the parameters which are growing. So GDP numbers not just tell just about the quantity of output and income, but also some other factors around it. Then it also talks about how growth is generated. We should never forget that production and consumption, distribution and redistribution all are part of growth. So for a steady, sustainable growth, we need to ascertain along with GDP numbers also how this growth is generated. Yes, and whether the growth is stable or unstable. Are there conditions around growth which are stable? For example, the prices of commodities, prices of services, or is there any kind of macroeconomic indicator that we can look at, like inflation or deflation or disinflation? So we need to understand whether this growth which is happening is it stable or is it unstable? Then growth theories attempt to answer certain questions. Now, what are these questions that it is attempting to answer? Why some countries grow fast, like South Korea or China? Why they have, reached a certain level of growth at a faster pace than any other nation? Why some stagnate despite investment? Many least developed or underdeveloped economies stagnate or keep on getting into that loop of vicious circle. So there are certain growth and development theories which talk about why these economies are stuck in this vicious circle of poverty, like Ragnar Nurks has told, or why they are always in that low level equilibrium trap, as Nelson has given in his theory. Okay. Also, these theories answer the question that why growth sometimes increases inequalities. So whether it is about regional disbalances that increase, like we talk from the point of view of cumulative causation theory, okay, by Myrdal, or we talk about the unbalanced growth theory by Albert Hirschman, which again talks about disbalances in the economy and generating inequality. Or we talk about Simon Kuznets' concept of inequality, increase in inequality along with growth and development in the economy. So several growth theories indicate several growth theories indicate and provide solutions to so many questions that we can ask with respect to different nations, different countries and their trajectory of growth. Now, as I was talking about some very important factors that each and every student must remember, now these are some of the factors that I have mentioned over here. First, let's talk about capital accumulation. Now, a day before yesterday, when I was teaching to some of the students with regards to capital accumulation, they were thinking that capital accumulation is just accumulating money and keeping a stock of it, which actually capital accumulation is completely not. Capital accumulation, how you're going to accumulate capital, how you are going to accumulate money in the form of an asset. Okay, for example, machines or infrastructure or factories or businesses. the more that we have, the more machines we have, the more technology we have, the more infrastructure we have, that showcases the more capital accumulation we do in a country or in an economy. Okay, so whether we talk about Harrod-Domar models, or we talk about Lewis or Calder, or any classical, neoclassical, modern, any theory, any growth theory or growth model, we definitely talk about capital accumulation. So you should know what exactly capital accumulation is. Then next, we talk about labor and human capital also in many growth theories and growth models. But in different growth theories and growth models, labor, which is material labor, and human labor, both are considered differently. For example, in some theories, we talk about the quantity and quality of labor in a very different manners. In some theories, labor is homogeneous, while in some other theories, labor is heterogeneous, meaning having different skills. Then we talk about education, skills and health also in various theories differently. For example, in some theories, we talk about skilled and unskilled labor. We talk about whether the labor is movable or immovable, whether the labor has some technical knowledge or know-how or not. So we talk about all of things also with regards to labor. Now, human capital, many students usually find this terminology very difficult to understand. Human capital. Firstly, humans are kept under labor. Then how human comes under capital? So, in modern theories, in modern economic theories, capital is considered to have been dissected into two parts. So there is physical capital and there is human capital. Physical capital talks about machinery, talks about infrastructure, while human capital talks about the skilled labor force which is educated, which has knowledge, and which can earn productivity and provide value to the production process. Okay, so again, theories which were endogenous growth theories or different theories like the theories by Paul Romer, and even Solow has provided an exogenous technological view on it. Many theories have talked about labor being or having a prominent role. You would see that many growth models like Harrod-Domar model also has utilized population growth as a parameter in growth in the natural growth process, GN. Even the Harrod-Domar model talks about how population is important. In Lewis model, definitely how population travels from one sector to another has been talked about. So labor again becomes a very, very important factor to be considered in any of the growth theories or models. So your perspective of learning it should now become more more valued and more insightful. Now, third thing that most of the modern or post-Keynesian growth theories and growth models contain is technology and institutions. Okay, although Joseph Schumpeter's theory that we learn in mid-classical thought is also a very important part of this because it talks about innovation. But other than that, the newer modern economists definitely talk about technology, technological progress, upgradation, innovation, invention, research and development, and even governance or systems. Governance is not government. Governance means systems, operating systems. When these are there or the infrastructure is there, conducive enough in an economy, to provide for good efficient systems, good efficient R&D, good efficient innovation, then definitely economy will experience growth, right? And if we talk about India, so India invested heavily in physical capital post-independence. Yes, India was an agrarian economy, and after India received independence and we established Planning Commission by 1950s. In the 1951, we started with our Planning Commission 5-year plans. Okay, the first 5-year plan was based on the Harrodoma model, where we talked about investment in a lot of physical capital, because we wanted to grow the economy and come out of that underdevelopment problem. That Hindu rate of growth was something that was considered bad for our economy, and it was giving our economy a very bad name. And because of that, we wanted to break that shell. And definitely after after providing an architecture for Harrod and Domer models according to Indian customization, we definitely got out of that. We broke the shell of slow growth, and we went on to grow our economy in a much better manner. However, our major focus was on industrial sector and manufacturing sector, and which is why in the second 5-year plan we had to adopt our own indigenous growth model, which was prepared by P.C. Mahalanobis. So Indian thought process and India's trajectory was different than how growth theories and growth models were written, because India had a very different customization. India had a lot of different features like population, growth trajectory, sectors which were very key sectors of Indian economy, like agriculture sector, which did not have that kind of productivity or technology. So we had to push the economy initially, and then it could reach a stage where we could gain momentum, and with that due ignition. So yes, then human capital and technology lagged, limiting growth impact, which we of course discussed just now, that yes, we invested in physical capital a lot initially, but whether it was education or whether it was related to making people aware, financial inclusion, educational inclusion, everything came later. Because of that, the growth was not sustainable for us. But later on, of course, we adopted to different policies which made our growth pattern different. Okay. Now, how different theories explain growth. Now let's have a quick mapping of how different growth theories and models explain growth. Now this is not inclusive of even 1/4 of the growth theories and models that we learn, but this is just a gist. If you want to learn more about such growth theories and models, you can just message growth on 7880107880 to get a more detailed map on growth and development theories like this. Okay. Now, let's talk about Harrod-Domer models. The Harrod-Domer models talked about savings and investment because they were extension of the Keynesian growth model or Keynesian growth thought. Okay. So, which talked about planned saving equals to planned investment. However, the problem that they highlighted was that growth is dynamic. Growth is not a stable pattern. Growth is dynamic, which was shown in the knife edge equilibrium that we often talk about. G equals to GW equals to GN. Then, if I talk about Solow-Swan model talks about technology being exogenous. Usually we have the equation as y equals to A, F, K, comma, L, okay, where A is the exogenous technology, okay. Here we talk about capital the factor which has diminishing returns. So Solow says that after a point of time, the capital is not going to provide any further increase in output. There is a certain limit till which we can increase the capital so as to increase the output. After that point is reached, then further increasing of the capital will just lead to diminishing returns on capital. Then we have Arthur Lewis, who talked about labor transfer from agriculture sector or the sustainable agriculture sector or the subsistence sector to a modern sector, which is industrial sector. And the highlighted problem of the theory was because the theory was based on underdeveloped economies, and underdeveloped economies have the issue of dualism, meaning that those economies showcase dual nature of economy. Somewhere you will find highly modern perspective, while on the other hand some part of the economy will be very traditional, very orthodox. Okay, and then there are different ways in which we can explain dualism, like there is social dualism, there is financial dualism, there is technological dualism, and furthermore. Okay, then we have Paul Romer, who gave the idea of modern economic theory, where we talk about ideas and research and development. So his theory was a betterment over Solow's theory. He said that Romer said that ideas or R&D actually happen when we nurture human capital. Okay, so which is why the diversification of capital into physical and human capital was done through endogenous growth theories, where we talk about innovation, we talk how the returns can be increasing, and we also talk about market failures that exist through innovation, after innovation, what type of cycles occur. So we talk about that in Romer's model. Then we have Walt Rostow, who said that there are 5 stages of growth which every economy follows. Okay, so he laid his 5 stages of growth, and he said that all the economies, no matter from where they begin, they start from being a primitive economy, and then they move towards the takeoff stages and then high mass consumption. Okay, and then we have Gunnar Myrdal, again a very famous economist, who talked about cumulative causation, how regional inequalities occur because of growth and development. As a reason or as an effect of growth in an economy, there are regional disparities. Now, why do you require such mapping? Because you would remember these growth theories in a nutshell, and it's always easier to elaborate in your own words later if you remember the keywords, right? Now, if I talk about Indian context, there are certain theories, certain growth models which fit into Indian context. So let's discuss them also. Harrod-Domar models, I have already told you that in the India's first 5-year plans, Harrod-Domar model was utilized so that we could increase the capital output, we could infuse the capital output ratio, and we could increase the growth, okay, for our economy. We could ignite our economy initially. Then if we talk about the rural-urban migration, how people moved from smaller villages to bigger villages to bigger cities to metro cities in the search of development, opportunities, remuneration, higher wages. It depicts the Lewis model. If we talk about IT sector of our nation, how IT sector started bringing us more revenue, more recognition, we can definitely understand it through Solow's model. Okay. Now I'm saying that these are things, okay, They are not based on these models. I'm suggesting that all of these things which have happened in India, we can learn it, we can learn these events by learning these theories or these growth models, okay? So you can understand it with these examples much better. Again, the Startup India, Digital India, all of these R&D incubation centers, entrepreneurship incubation centers, all of these things are with a vision like how Romer's model has stated, how human capital is the engine of growth, how can we increase our returns uncontrollably if we invest more in human capital, by educating human capital, by making them skilled, by teaching them technology, by making them aware, by making them empowered. All of these things are a depiction of Romer's model. Regional imbalances. Regional imbalances, as we saw, there are states in India where people moved to other cities, to other towns, to other states, leaving those states in a very critical, poor condition. So through government policies, these states now have been revamped, and many states have received better infrastructure, and now they are more into, they are also showcasing growth. So in a nutshell, we can say that India and the architects and the economists of India are consistently brainstorming and providing us with certain policies, certain schemes, which are very much correlated with core economic principles. If we look at these policies and schemes in depth, we will see a very important connection that is drawn along the lines of growth and development theories that we learn, right? So, with this thought, let's understand lastly that growth alone cannot do wonders for any economy, okay? Growth requires sustainability. Growth requires refurbishment. Growth requires to be regulated. So only looking at quantity, only looking at numbers, only looking at GDP, only looking at growth models would not solve the problem of any economy. Because growth without development, without looking at the economy internally, without looking at the sectors internally, without looking at problems of regional disparities, inequality, poverty, unemployment, education, health, without looking at all of these things, growth is incomplete. Hence, to have sustainable growth, we need to understand growth and development both together and apply them for any economy's context. So with that, we learn the basics of growth and development. For understanding more such informative contexts with regards to growth and development, you can follow us only at Ecoholics. Thank you.